I'd like to call the meeting to order. Thank those attending here today and those who may watch us now or later live on YouTube. Begin by apologizing to those for the delay in this morning's meeting. We just had some matters to finalize earlier this morning, so my apologies. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to start the meeting with a land acknowledgement. In keeping with Indigenous protocol and building respectful relationships between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples in Canada, it is customary to acknowledge the traditional territories and ancestral lands of Indigenous peoples. We would like to acknowledge this sacred land on which the Barrie Simcoe Emergency Service Campus operates. It has been the site for human activity for 15,000 years. This land is the ancestral land of the Wendat and the Anishinaabe Nation. The treaty that was signed for this particular parcel of land is collectively referred to as the Williams Treaty. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture. We also recognize the enduring presence of Indigenous peoples on this land and are committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect. Miigwech. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve today's agenda that was distributed in advance. Mr. Khan, Mr. Strawn, one adjustment to the agenda before we're adding an update to our records related fees. I'll put that as number 10 and move the rest down one notch. So that was distributed. Has it been distributed yet, Danielle? Yes, distributed in advance. So there is one adjustment adding that. With that adjustment, all those in favor of the agenda? Thank you. Any conflicts of interest from any members of the board with respect to our agenda today? Seeing none, thank you. Distributed in advance was the minutes of our meeting of May the 18th, 2023. Motion, Mr. Khan, seconder. Deputy Mayor Thompson, any comments, concerns, adjustments with respect to those minutes? Seeing none, those in favor? Thank you. For my notes on the deputation here. The Barrie Police Service Board has a duty to ensure we are making the best possible use of taxpayers' dollars every year. We continue to focus on community safety and well-being and the role the service plays within the broader network of social services within our city. Our service will align the budget submissions with the guidelines from the City of Barrie Council and Finance Department, which are provided to all its service partners. As a board, we are committed to continuing with enhanced public engagement and public education surrounding our budget process and look forward to working with our community and the City of Barrie to ensure that our 2024 budget request is fiscally responsible and serves the community while still ensuring the service can meet its responsibilities under the Police Services Act. As we begin to draft our 2024 budget, we are here to receive deputations from members of the public with respect to our budget. To date, we have received one request from the community, Michael Spears. Mr. Spears, welcome to the Barrie Police Service Board. In accordance with our deputation rules, you'll have 5 minutes to, and then open the floor to questions from the board. Mr. Spears, welcome to the Barrie Police Service Board. Good to see you again.
The red light. Good morning, members of the board, Chief Johnston, staff. I was going to say Mayor Nuttall, but I see he's not here, which is very disappointing, and I hope it doesn't represent the seriousness or the lack of seriousness that this issue is being taken by many people. For those who are here, thank you again for giving me the opportunity to speak to you about the 2024 police budget. I am here representing numerous friends and neighbors to once again ask you to reduce the upcoming police budget, or has been more accurately and heartbreakingly described as a policing invoice. I hope you can listen with open minds and with a desire for change, because the status quo isn't how we should be moving forward. I've stood here before a few times. Honestly, standing up here, I sometimes feel like a man climbing Mount Everest in my shorts. I've discussed in past deputations about policing being a drain on society and why policing is an archaic method of ensuring public safety. I've talked about its roots in racism and oppression, and how this foundation has enshrined racism and oppression into modern policing. I've described how policing is the violent arm of the state and is designed to protect property and not people. I've tried to make the case for why Barrie must rethink public safety and why this means making a concerted and bold effort to take money away from the police in order to invest it in the resources and services that actually lead to a reduction in crime. Because policing simply doesn't do that. Sure, decades of police TV shows have made it look like they do, but it's simply not the reality. And citizens are finally realizing that putting money upstream, helping people get the services they need when they need it, is the best method of crime prevention. And diverting tax dollars away from the police is pretty much the only way to do this, while also funding city programs, building social housing, investing in better transit, helping our neighbors who are unhoused, creating youth programs, ensuring infrastructure projects are completed, etc., etc. Deputy Mayor Thompson, I'm sure you could come up with a pretty long list of things that should be done if the city only had the money to do them. The money is there, but in our system, where money and city revenue can be a finite and limited amount, having one single city entity suck up tens of millions of dollars each year isn't just unacceptable anymore, it's unsustainable. And quite frankly, it leads to an unequal and discriminatory approach to public safety, which, as we know, is often a perception and can mean different things to different people. Let's take Nina, for example. She's a 25-year-old woman who has been unhoused for a few months. She's afraid to stay in a shelter because of a couple of violent incidents she experienced. So she's using a donated tent and has found community with other people in a city park. Or Fred, a 70-year-old former factory worker who has to ask for money at a local intersection in order to supplement his income just so he can afford his apartment. Or James, an 18-year-old black teen who has only had his driver's license for 6 months, but has already been stopped by police on numerous occasions. Then we have Brad and Lauren, a married couple who don't feel safe downtown because the group of men they assume are homeless and probably doing drugs are making them feel uncomfortable. Nina, Fred, and James don't feel safe in our community. Brad and Lauren don't feel safe in our community. But this city, through so-called solutions like an increased police budget, only seems to be open to helping the latter. That's who continues to be the priority. Their safety seems to be all that matters, while others like Nina, Fred, and James are forced to find ways to survive a wave of violence being waged by governments and businesses, all supported by institutions such as the police. For the past few years, I've heard politicians and police leadership talk about doing things different. But that's all there's been, talk. There's been very little effort to engage with the public and have an honest discussion about the future of policing in our community. For too long, our local leaders have been stuck with one approach. They've acted like people looking for a lost phone under a lamppost because that's where the light is. It's time to look beyond traditional approaches. Police cannot bandage our social problems, and it's time to stop fantasizing that they can. Everyone's safety matters, and every dollar matters. I understand this. So my ask is this: trim the police budget by at least 10% in 2024. It should be a lot more, but let's start at 10%. Think of it as a goodwill gesture on both of our parts. I want to believe that a safe community is all of us here in this room are looking for. I don't always think that way. After all, we do have pretty significant differences in our politics and approaches most times. But this morning, I want to believe we have that in common, at least. And from that common ground, I hope we can move forward. I hope you as a board can put previous ideas and preconceived notions of public safety aside and do what is right for every person in this city. Barrie is overpoliced and Barrie is underserved. It's time we did something about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Spears, for your comments. You opened up with respect to Mayor Nuttall's absence. I can assure you, he advised me long before the meeting of a family commitment this morning, so that's his reason for not being here. Open it up to the board for any questions for the Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Oh, sorry. Good morning, Mr. Spears. I think this is your third deputation to the board, if I remember correctly, possibly
so.
more.
Third or fourth, yeah.
Yeah. And I appreciate it. You know, it's about perspective and, you know, approaches from all members of the community. I just wondered, Do you ever feel that deputations or lobbying service providers in our community, as you're aware that the police become the default, will interview social entities in our community, and they do great work Monday to Friday from 9 to 5. Have you ever thought about, using some of the energy and looking for the increase in their services, which falls under medical and healthcare, which is non-funded by municipalities, with respect to a reduction in the police budget, to then start funding things that are not in the city's portfolio. Um, you know, Policing is expensive, and there's nobody that'll tell you different. But it's a necessary entity to our city, and the residents I speak to would like policing to be cheaper 100%. But if there was ever a reduction, they'd like the money back in a reduction in their taxes, not to then start funding things that don't fall within our portfolio as a municipal government. So I was just wondering if, the residents and your neighbors that you speak of that are coming to you, have you ever went to our service providers to have an approach like, we are taking measures by working collaborative with some of them, but I believe we need some increased social safety nets and services for our marginalized and for other people. I agree with that. So I understand, but I just find that we don't do enough to hold them accountable, but we find that, you're here, on a regular basis and trying to get the money from here. But I'm just wondering if you ever lobby or, have conversations with those service providers to see if they could increase, which would then decrease the number of calls that police are the default in today's society.
Well, I'm involved in a number of different community advocacy projects and organizations. So I don't think I need to stand up here and defend what I believe in or what activities I'm involved in. And I will point out, I think it's telling that when you comment about what people want, that they want a tax reduction. Like you're talking about a specific segment of the population. I think it's telling that you brought that up, and my deputation kind of touched on that. Is that those people are the ones that matter in our community, to council, to the police, the people who struggle, the people who have nowhere else to turn, they're forgotten too often. And like your comments right there about how they want people want a tax reduction, they don't want increases to services. Well, the people struggling in our community, I do want increases in services. And as far as community organizations being held accountable, I think in this venue here, like I'm here to make sure that you're held accountable and that the police are held accountable. It's not my job right now to criticize a outside social service agency because you think they're not doing a good enough job in helping people. The fact of the matter is that helping people is your job, and the city needs to recognize that and actually start to do it. And I've said before, I've sent you information before about decreasing policing and its negative effects, and they've done studies about how decreasing police budgets doesn't lead to an increase in crime. So it kind of blows my mind that with that information in front of us, we don't see that we can decrease the budget, have very little effect on people's lives, the people that you mentioned's lives, but it will have a benefit and a great positive effect on the lives of people who need help, who need housing, who need who need a supervised consumption site, who need better shelters, who need a opioid plan that's functioning, things like that. So yeah, I'm here today to keep you guys accountable, and I hope you can respect that.
So as you touched on it, just as a follow-up, so You mentioned about the person who was received a tent and, you know, making that a police matter. That was a motion of council. But we have actually allocated funds to help at the tune of over the next 2 years of 1.6 million for a warming and cooling center, which was something that the service providers were calling for. We've had some food challenges due to inflation of food prices, which we've dedicated money to try and continue some food programs to help. So, like I said, I understand that I mentioned that if there was a tax reduction or a cost reduction in the policing, that not all residents would want it to go then to something else. But we are already doing other things. Now, you know, in some people's eyes, it's never enough. Some people's eyes, it's too much. But I think that with a whole outlook from tip to toe, we would be able to reduce the call volume of policing. That in turn would probably create a reduction in the bill. So thank you for your deputation.
Mr. Spears, I see we've exceeded our time on behalf of the Barrie Police Service Board. Thank you for your interest, your advocacy, your concerns, and taking the time to present them to us this morning. We appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Next on the agenda are, there's 3 consent items. I forgot to mention that we moved a number 11 that's currently on our agenda, or I did move number 11, the Barrie Police Service Annual Report to consent as well. That was presented to us previously, so I have moved it from presentation to consent. So there's 4 items in the consent agenda: staff acknowledgements, public complaints, use of force, and the Barrie Police Service Annual Report, all which were provided to the members prior. A motion to receive those consent agenda items. Mr. Khan, Ms. Strawn, is there any questions for the chief or team with respect to the consent agenda items this morning? Seeing none, those in favor? Thank you. Also, in advance of our meeting, we received the appointment for auxiliary members, a motion to approve the appointment of auxiliary members. Latham, I think, Parkhurst, Reynolds, Sarmatillo, Tumlewitz, Vieira, and Van Schubert. Mr. Khan. Deputy Mayor Thompson, any comments, concerns, or questions with respect to the appointment? Mr. Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Shows dedication to our service. I said, just a quick comment. I just think it's great that some of the people from our team are joining the auxiliary police just to have a perspective on both sides. So I just think they should be commended for, you know, the initiative, and it's great.
I echo your comments, Deputy Mayor Thompson. Any other? Those in favor of receiving, or those in favor of the motion? Thank you. I moved or added to the agenda earlier, number 12, updates to our records and related fees. The proposal from Senior Command was received. Any questions for the chief or others with respect to the update to our records fees? Seeing none, I require a motion to approve the adjustment. Mr. Khan? Strawn, any questions or comments? Seeing none, those in favor? Thank you. I think I'll hand it over to you now, Chief. I think we're at community traffic strategy to introduce your team to give us an update on the strategy, sir.
Thank you, Board Chair. Yes, as promised, when we first spoke with the board in terms of doing deeper dives and leveraging our data better, the I think the expectation and of our community was to demonstrate a greater measurement and a return on investment for their policing services. We've spoken about the crime data, and we are now going to look more toward the traffic safety and as an organizational approach. With us today, we have Sergeant Kurt Phillips, head of our traffic unit, Madison Sharman, who the board is familiar with, our organizational researcher, and Samantha Scott, a crime analyst, working here. So I think I will hand it over shortly, but just say there was a fair amount of work that went into this presentation, as you will see, and I assume, or I'm expecting a number of questions as a result of the presentation. So, Sergeant Phillips.
Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, Chief. Good morning, Deputy Chief. Good morning, Police Service Board. My name is Kurt Phillips. I'm currently in charge of the Barrie Police Traffic Unit, as Chief had mentioned. To my right, we have Madison and Sam. I won't go over their titles. I won't steal your thunder. We can start here. Okay. In 2022, traffic unit was reconstructed to fit the community needs. The decision was guided by our traffic data and the complaints that we received from the public. It was restructured into two sides. We have the road safety and the collision investigations unit, and I'll get more depth to that here in a second. Next slide. Yeah. The road safety unit consists of 4 officers, which covers day and afternoon shifts. The main focus is traffic safety, which is broken down into 3 areas. Traffic enforcement, which is obviously your provincial offense notices, your cautions, and education. Traffic initiatives, which are your ride, commercial motor vehicle inspections, distracted driving, stunt driving, erase, those type of things. Traffic complaints in the end there, which are mostly given to us by either Cop Logic, which is the Barrie Police website, emails, ward counselors, communications, and direct phone calls into the Barrie Police or the Barrie Police Traffic Unit. Next slide. Our collision investigation unit also consists of 4 highly trained officers. Their mandate is to all serious motor vehicle collisions and follow-ups as a result of those investigations. Our officers in that unit also facilitate our drug DRE programs, so our cannabis, all that type of driving issues. They also facilitate our sobriety programs, as well as our experts. They're experts in blood and medical warrants, and they deal with submissions for the into the Center of Forensic Sciences for urine and drug testing. They also spend a significant amount of time training our frontline officers in regards to traffic investigations. Next. Oh, waiting? Okay. Oh, here we go. Evidence-based policing. The traffic unit is actively embracing evidence-based methods to address traffic safety aimed at preventing harm within our community and ensuring safer streets and pathways. With the use of high visible initiatives, we hope to change driver behavior, which will remind drivers to do the right thing rather than catching them for doing the wrong thing. All of our decision-making and strategies are based on data gathered internally or from our accident reporting center, and is strategically deployed in the way we branch out our resources. All right, traffic complaints. The one piece of data that we use to address traffic complaints obviously come from various avenues. Cop Logic, which is the Barrie Police website, our communications unit, our ward counselors, and 2 emails that we've set up in the traffic unit. They're school bus violations at barriepolice.ca and traffic tips at barriepolice.ca, which are monitored daily by our traffic unit. And what we've done, which we just launched in May, is our traffic letter program. It's a new initiative. And the complaint, what the letter does is if we receive a complaint to the Barrie Police and we obviously need the license plate number, we will send a letter to that registered owner, and the letter details a brief explanation of the offense, the penalty, financial impact, the demerit points, and any associated infraction. This letter is just it's not a ticket, it's a warning. There's no fines, there's no demerit points, like I said earlier. But we find that if the RO gets the letter, they now know that obviously there was some type of complaint received by Barrie Police, and if they weren't the one driving, at least they'll notify the family member who was. And at the bottom of the letter, I don't know, not sure if you can see it there. It gives the traffic officer's name and number and extension number, so they have an opportunity to call in and get some background information if in regards to the traffic complaint. So far this year, we've just launched in May 2023. We've handed out sent 14 letters so far, and we're hoping that encourages the community to report these events and also helps us gain insights in regards to deploying our officers and frontline officers to the areas of concern. I guess now I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Sergeant Phillips. So Sam and I are going to talk about the numbers, which I find super fun, so hopefully bear with me. We're going to talk about our traffic offenses numbers, different motor vehicle collisions, all those kinds of things, and try and put those pieces together. So the data is most updated until April 30th, and I'll kind of mention why that delay in a little second. But yeah, we're going to look at some trends. So we get our traffic data from the Accident Reporting Center that's attached here to our building out of what they call CROMS, which is their records management system. So they have self-reported data as well as police data, and that's all married together, and they send us updates monthly on the data. So that's how we get it, and that's why there's a little bit of delay just with the timing of this presentation. So I want to talk about our ticket volume. So this includes our Highway Traffic Act and Canadian Automobile Insurance Act tickets. So that includes things like driving without insurance, running red lights, stop signs. I will say here, this doesn't include any criminal code violations, so impaired driving, that kind of thing is not included in these numbers. These are just the provincial offense notices. So as you see, there's not a very clear pattern. It fluctuates year to year, and we can explain that by looking at traffic enforcement mainly as proactive, right? Depending on the strategic initiatives and priorities of the service, the level of busyness of the service, sometimes these can change day to day, week to week, and traffic enforcement is proactive. So what we see is sometimes we are reducing the time of downtime between calls, and we're not able to do as much proactive in certain spots to increase these tickets. So I do want to highlight for that reason, because they can be very heavily influenced by external factors, our PONs are not necessarily our best measures of traffic safety or police activity. Awesome. So now that we've looked at our ticketing volume, I wanted to show our calls for service related to traffic. So here we see our traffic enforcement. That means proactive, an officer booking off at a location to do proactive monitoring. We have our routine traffic stop. That's an officer pulling an individual over. And then we have our traffic control. That's things like paid duties. And so echoing the trends we've seen with our tickets, again, not a clear pattern, very easily influenced by the priorities of the day, week, month, year. So when there's a lack of downtime, and I know in the past 365 days, I was looking at our calls for service and they've hit about 79,000. So right now we've actually seen in that year period our highest calls for service ever. And so that, compared to understanding kind of the fluctuations we've been seeing, helps us understand some of our volume here. So when we put it all together and compare tickets issued compared to motor vehicle accidents, this also paints a bit of a confusing picture. So again, no clear trends in the data. Random ticket enforcement, then we can kind of deduce, is not an effective strategy right now to reduce accidents. The way we're doing it right now with that random nature, with the tickets and PONs, we've just decided that it's time to reevaluate our strategies. So from this, we know we need to figure out what works, because right now this isn't working and we know that. So we need to work towards a more evidence-based, data-driven, and targeted traffic strategy. So that's what we've been looking at doing. So looking at, does targeted enforcement help curb some of this undesirable behavior? Does targeting in high volume areas at the right times reduce some of these accidents? And so from this, we've worked with our city to deploy a hotspot traffic targeting strategy that I'm going to discuss a little bit later. But first, I'm going to get Samantha to talk about how we've actually identified our hotspots.
So as Madison had previously mentioned, and as previously shown on the graph above, randomized issue tickets may not have that reduction impact that we would like to see when it comes to collisions. However, overall, we do want to see a reduction in those overall numbers altogether to create a safer environment when on the road. So with saying that, as plotted above, we have the City of Barrie and we have the scene investigated collisions and self-reported collisions plotted in red. And for a bit of context and background, scene investigated collisions are any accidents that require police resources to attend the scene, which is typically recognized with severe collisions. And self-reported collisions are any accidents that require the individual to attend the collision reporting center to actually report the accident that took place. But nevertheless, altogether, as Madison also mentioned, we do want to identify prominent areas in which these collisions are taking place to hopefully have an impact on the reduction of collisions altogether. So to succeed with this goal, we had to look at the data, and there were certain things that needed to be excluded and filtered out to be able to have that effective display of the city and the collisions taking place. So to start off, when looking at the data, we had to remove any self-reported collisions. And that's just because, as previously stated, these incidences do not require any police resources to attend the scene. So with removing self-reported collisions from the data, we are now just looking at scene investigated collisions, again, typically more severe. However, we still have to remove certain things from that data as well. For example, any collisions that happened off roadway. So it's basically any accidents that didn't take place on a specific road or road segment. And that can be trails, frozen lakes, or even parkways. Those were removed, as well as any collisions that happened on private property, again, which can be driveways or plaza parking lots. And again, just to highlight, these things were removed because we felt like they didn't reflect where police resources can go or where they had any validity in terms of impacting that reduction altogether. So when looking at this data here at the map, just the red dots, it is showing us an effective display of collisions throughout the city of Barrie. However, in order to identify where the most prominent locations are and certain areas for police to go to, a spatial joint analysis was done with these data points and the street segments of the city of Barrie. And through that, we were able to conclude a different type of map. The one before that. Sorry. It just basically has a joint count, again, with those data points prior and the street segments of Barrie. And we can see the more red the street segments are, the more prominent amount of collisions took place. So when identifying these areas and when doing a joint count, we were able to identify 12 locations, 12 prominent areas throughout the city of Barrie. And through these 12 prominent locations, we can go to the next slide because then they're actually listed. So through this entire analysis and with identifying these prominent locations, we can further identify if police visibility being targeted to these locations does have an overall impact and reduction and overall creating a safer environment when on the road.
So bear with me the last 2 minutes. I'm going to whip through some of our strategies that we've come up to target these areas and some other concerns that we've had. So looking at our hotspot operational plan, we've identified those 12 areas. We plan to split them into groups of those that will receive an enhanced treatment and those that will receive business as usual, just for statistical comparison purposes. So those that are receiving our advanced treatment, you're going to see a highly visible police presence in those areas. Traffic calming measures has helped with the city and increased traffic enforcement in those areas. And that will be targeted both by our traffic unit and our front line. And as we move forward to our next steps, we're going to continue to work very closely with the City of Barrie's traffic services. We have met with them for a few times. We are very on the same page with our strategies, exploring different use of technology, and using evidence-based and innovative practices to address traffic safety and complaints. So I'm actually going to talk about one of those right now. As we all know, Barrie Police likes to be very innovative with what we try. So we've cooked up a new strategy we'd like to look at for targeting noisy vehicles. So we hope to leverage our Citizens on Patrol volunteer unit to target noisy vehicles. So we would go to areas of high complaints. We would have our Citizens on Patrol out there, very visible and very marked, potentially even with auxiliary members. We would have them monitor the sound of those high complaint areas, for us to have some data-driven knowledge about those high complaint areas, but also to see what cars are above the acceptable noise level. They would then record the license plates of those vehicles, which will then get sent to our traffic unit. And then our traffic unit can use all of the tools at their disposal, whether it be a traffic letter, a visit, or a phone call, to follow up on those individuals to show that there is follow through, we are listening, and we do plan to target the noise, but using maybe a little bit of a different approach with our Citizens on Patrol. So that's everything from us, and we are happy to answer any questions.
Questions before we thank the presenters? Deputy Mayor Thompson, please.
Thank you for the presentation. It's more of a comment. We've been fortunate enough to have a couple of town hall meetings where the chiefs attended, and it's nice to see that we're trying something new and stuff, just letting the residents know that, we've heard their concerns and that we're going to look into it and try to see if we can come up with a solution. So thank you.
Ms. Strawn, please.
Thank you, Chair. I actually have a couple of questions. One of my questions is just about the collision hotspots and the collision reporting. And do we suss out where we have collisions involving pedestrians or cyclists?
We can. So that would be included in that data set. But if you'd like, we could parse that out specifically. The Accident Reporting Center data is very specific. That would let us do that.
Yeah, I think if we're seeing trends where there's pedestrian or cyclist incidents, then we should have additional focus on those areas, just because those would be more severe outcomes for people and larger risk. So that would be great. And I really like the identification of the hotspots, and I'm surprised actually at some of the hotspots, and some of them I'm not surprised about at all. And I'm also just wondering how we're working with the City of Barrie Traffic Department to address things like traffic signalization and ways in which we can improve traffic flow that might decrease accidents. So Bayfield and Coulter Street is a great example. That's a terrible light. And I think that might lead to some of the collisions that take place at that intersection. And so are there ways in which we can work with them to test things out, like adjusting the traffic light timing or things of that nature?
Absolutely. I'll speak to that quickly. And then if Kurt and the chief want to jump in. So we met with the city and we discussed kind of these collaborative hotspots that we're seeing. And so we agreed to take that enforcement side, and our enforcement side is this hotspot enforcement strategy with our Citizens on Patrol as well. With the kind of agreement that the city is also going to examine these intersections in these hotspot areas within their own lens of, okay, infrastructure wise, what can be improved in these areas? So it is a joint enforcement and city lens on these hotspots, but I'll pass that off if Kurt, you have more to add.
Sure. I don't want to get too technical about the city, but like Madison has said, we've met with them several times, and I know they have the ability to change the lights and to monitor. And I know, in fact, they actually have cameras that say Maple View and Bayview, which is always a concern. They can watch a live feed and they can modify the lights if they need to. So I don't want to get too technical, but I know they can do that, and they're obviously doing that.
I just be looking at things from both sides and then seeing how we can address concerns in that way. And then my last question relates to the letters, which I think are great. And I'm wondering, as a citizen, like, what is the way in which, how are we letting citizens know that they can provide us with this information and that we will address it? And how do they go about doing that?
When we launched the letter in May, there was a lot of on media on our website. As soon as you log on to Barrie Police, it's there's a folder there that explains everything about the letter, and there's questions, answers. So it's all there on the website. So yeah.
Thank you. And we're, as Deputy Mayor Thompson said, when we're going to the town hall meetings, we're taking that opportunity to encourage our community members to go through that website and to do that, because it is they've identified a host of concerns in all the different town halls that we've been to, and this is our opportunity to have them participate in acting on them and our ability to act on them as well. So, and I just jump on one last point there with respect to the city. We are also looking at risk terrain modeling, and so that's looking at the physical environment around those locations based on the data and how those can be altered. At the end of the day, what we're looking for is reduced accidents, but not, and that is true road safety. But then we have, with reduced accidents, means officers are going to actions less. That means more officers out there doing other things as opposed to scene investigation, which allows them to do more proactive things, including traffic enforcement across the city. So, thank you.
I think just my last comment around the letters, moving, like, as we go through summer, moving into fall, I think it would be a good opportunity for us to communicate this to school principals, because I personally hear about a lot of traffic complaints around children walking to school and like cars who are out in intersections when they shouldn't be, like, people who decide they're going to make a left-hand turn when kids are crossing the street and they need to stay behind the line until all the kids get out on the sidewalk. So I think if we let principals know about that, they can put that in their school newsletters, and then parents will be able to report that way. And that might really help in those school zones where we hear a lot of problems.
Sergeant, just in the data and the analysis, does construction come into play? Because, quite often you'll see changes in behavior as a result of construction and changes in traffic on certain roads as a result of construction. Is that type of analysis done in terms of where to deploy units?
I can answer a bit of that question. I think when looking at the data and when looking at prominent locations, I know we saw two intersections fairly close together, kind of. Oh, okay, yeah. It was Essa and Fairview, and then Essa and Bryan Drive. They're two intersections right after the other. However, currently there has been construction going on there for quite some time. And I remember looking at when looking at the data, was the past 365 days from April 30th, 2022 to April 30th, 2023. And then I recognized that there was construction there, and then just doing a bit more background, that construction didn't take place. It didn't begin until April of 2022. I think it fully got deployed in June 2022. So that was taken into consideration, and that's why that hotspot location is recognized as Essa Road in between Fairview and Bryan, just because of those two intersections probably being the cause of that same factor, being that construction. So I hope that answers a bit of it anyway. Sorry.
Questions from the board? On behalf of the boards, Sergeant Phillips, Ms. Sharman, and Ms. Scott, thank you very much for your presentation. And obviously, as a board and as a service, traffic is very important. I'm pleased to see that we continue to develop our strategy. So thank you for your presentation this morning. Chief Johnston, your update for the board and the members of the public, please.
Thank you, Board Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to present this month's Chiefs update. Start with some crime prevention. So on May 18th, members from the Barrie Police Service Community Safety and Wellbeing Unit and the Fraud Unit attended the Bay Club with our community partner, Pauline Lewing, from the Prevention of Senior Abuse Network to speak to residents about the warning signs of elder abuse and how they can become engaged in taking steps to prevent it from happening to them or loved ones. On June 9th, with respect to fraud awareness, crime prevention outreach continued with members of our fraud unit attending the Georgian Mall to speak with to patrons about criminal trends happening locally. Our officers handed out flyers that listed fraud prevention resources and information on ways they can better protect themselves from falling victim to scams. And we have seen locally, in particular, with some of our more vulnerable populations, individuals targeting seniors with respect to accidents and someone, a loved one, concerned loved one being in that accident and unable to communicate. Again, reminding the public that police do not attend residences and collect money, nor receive payment in any shape or form. So when those calls do come through, we ask our community to be quite critical with that when they take that call and reach out to their loved one first, attempting to. We do not, as a matter of practice, ever call seeking money or funds. So, with respect to community events, on May 27th, Deputy Allen and Catherine Chittick, one of our members, attended the 5th annual Razors of Hope event, which was hosted by local Special Olympian and activist for the Down Syndrome Association of Simcoe County, Jason Hellman. Jason dedicated his head shave in Will Dwyer's memory, who passed away in 2022 at the age of 96. Barrie resident Mr. Dwyer was a Second World War veteran and was known for his fundraising efforts to support the Terry Fox Foundation. Congratulations, Jason, for raising $7,800 this year in support of the Terry Fox Foundation for Cancer Research. On June 11th, I attended the 2919 Grey and Simcoe Foresters Royal Canadian Army Cadet Corps for their 49th annual ceremonial review, where I was honored to present the Community Services Award. The 2919 Army Cadet Corps is one of the oldest continuously operated Army Cadet organizations in Canada. Again, our city is host of, we're the second oldest police service in Ontario, so we do have some history, and this is another organization that is even longer. So, with respect to community connections, throughout the month of June, our service is recognizing Indigenous History Month and honoring the history, heritage, resiliency, and diversity of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis community. We honor the stories, achievements, and resilience of the Indigenous peoples whose presence continues to impact and enrich our shared Canada. June also marks Pride Month. Together, we celebrated our community by participating in Barrie's own Pride Parade and a ceremonial Pride flag raising held here at the Barrie Simcoe Emergency Services Campus. Throughout the month of June and all other days of the year, the Barrie Police Service is committed to uplifting and celebrating our vibrant and diverse community. On June 13th and 14th, the Barrie Police Service facilitated a 2-day crime prevention through environmental design training course held at the Ferndale Banquet Hall. The course was led by Mr. Barry Horobin, Director of Planning and Physical Resources with the Windsor Police Service, who is the subject matter expert on everything SEPTED. 40 attendees learned about SEPTED principles, how to evaluate physical spaces, and how to implement proven strategies that promote positive uses of property. Building off the 2-day training on June 13th in the early evening, members of the Barrie Police Service Community Safety and Wellbeing team met with residents and business owners from Ward 5 to participate in a safety walk. Community members learned about crime prevention through environmental design and other ways they can help to deter criminal acts, reducing victimization, and how to better strengthen their sense of community. I attended to welcome Mr. Orban to the city and to thank him for providing his expertise. We are big supporters of CEPTED. We know there is some strong research supporting it and why it works. And in some of the town halls and town meetings, we've spoken to the value of ways to both reduce crime, but CEPTED also has an effect on social disorder, and looking to leverage that research better in this area. So on June 7th, a strong team made up of Special Olympians, Barrie Police Service members, and supporters participated in Law Enforcement Torch Run, which is the largest public awareness and grassroots fundraising organization for Special Olympics globally. Celebrations continued that day, with many of us sharing some birthday cake with our local Special Olympian, Jason Hellman. I hope that you had a fun and memorable day, Jason. On June 10th and 11th, the City of Barrie, in partnerships with Canadian Armed Forces Base Borden, the County of Simcoe, and Downtown BIA hosted the Canadian Armed Forces Snowbirds Air Show. With approximately 15,000 spectators in attendance, they were able to see the CAF Snowbirds Air Show, the Skyhawks parachute team, and an F-18 display that took place over the center of Kempenfeld Bay. With respect to everything police operations, the weekend was a success. With the assistance of 6 other police services, the safety and security of all persons who attended the community-based event was achieved. I'd like to take a moment to thank everyone involved, including our policing partners: Durham Regional Police Service, Rama Police Service, Ontario Provincial Police, South Simcoe Police, and the Ministry of Natural Resources for your assistance with all marine operations over the weekend. With respect to some investigations, I would like to highlight the following over the last month. On May 25th, our officers responded to a report of a break-and-enter in progress at Owen Street at an Owen Street convenience store. Additional information was received that 2 males had left the store on foot, and detailed descriptions of the 2 were provided by a witness. Upon arrival, police observed that a pane of glass in the front door had been shattered and the store had been ransacked. A short distance away, both males were quickly located and taken into custody. Search incident to arrest resulted in our officers locating a considerable amount of the stolen property. As a result of the continued investigation, a 38-year-old male and a 52-year-old male were jointly charged with break and enter and possession of property obtained by crime under $5,000. An existing bench warrant was also executed on the 38-year-old male for failing to attend court. On June 1st, an officer from the Barrie Police Service was on patrol in the downtown when a teen cyclist was observed operating a bicycle on the sidewalk of Dunlop Street West. The cyclist was stopped for bylaw and Highway Traffic Act related infractions. When the officer sought to confirm the identity of the teen, he was given a number of opportunities to provide his legal name, but he refused to do so and was arrested for obstructing a peace officer. Search incident to arrest led to a large amount of Canadian currency being found in the teen's possession, along with a quantity of suspected cocaine and fentanyl. So that male has been charged with obstruct peace officer, possession of a Schedule 1 substance, both for the cocaine and separately for the opioid and fentanyl, and possession for the purposes of trafficking, both for the cocaine and a separate charge for the opioid and fentanyl, as well as breach recognizance and a charge under the Highway Traffic Act for not having the required equipment on a bicycle. On June 9th, members of the Barrie Police Service Internet Child Exploitation Unit, our ICE unit, arrested a 40-year-old Barrie man following an online child pornography investigation. In January 2023, investigators received an online tip concerning the uploading of child pornography. The investigation led to an execution of a search warrant and the seizure of several computer devices for forensic analysis. Forensics were completed, and the categorization resulted in the discovery of hundreds of images of child pornography. The accused has been charged with accessing child pornography and possession of child pornography. He was remanded into custody and was held for bail. As difficult as it is to speak to criminal charges that involve some of our most vulnerable, I bring this forward to highlight the incredible work that is done by our sworn and civilian members who work tirelessly in trying to prevent further victimization and harm in our entire community. these are our most vulnerable victims, the children. So I am very appreciative on behalf of the Office of the Chief for our ICE investigators in particular. It is an incredibly challenging job to continually have to review the material and then continue on with life after seeing some of the things that they've seen. So with that, Chair, I complete my Chief's update to the board.
Thank you very much, Chief Johnson. Questions from the board for Chief? Seeing none, before we adjourn, I'd just like to congratulate Deputy Allen, who last week received his master's degree in public safety from Laurier University. Congratulations, Deputy Allen. Motion to adjourn. Receive. Thank you, everyone. Sorry for being over time here, but I appreciate it.